Many atheists claim that if a creator exists, he's imagined with human-like qualities, love, anger, compassion. They argue this reflects more of human projection than anything else. But let's consider, just because we use similar words for something doesn't mean the reality behind them is the same. Take the example of an ant and an elephant. Both have feet, but the foot of an ant and the foot of an elephant are vastly different. They might share a name, but they don't share the same form, scale, or impact. Similarly, when we talk about attributes like love, anger, or mercy, we shouldn't assume that a creator's attributes are like ours. Now let's break this down a bit. We say a creator loves. Human love is based on needs and desires. We want companionship, we seek relationships, and love often grows from mutual benefit. But a creator, being beyond limitation, wouldn't love because of need or gain. This love would be an unbounded, selfless attribute that's not rooted in dependence or desire. It's love that exists as an essential part of his nature, not a response or a feeling that arises based on conditions. So, while the word love is used, the depth and meaning of this love go far beyond our limited experience. Now let's look at anger. Human anger is often reactive. We feel frustrated or hurt. We have emotional responses, but a creator's anger would be fundamentally different. Rather than an emotional reaction, it would represent a commitment to justice, a measured response to actions that go against an eternal wisdom. Human anger flares up and subsides, often colored by ego or misunderstanding. But a creator without imperfection or fluctuation would not experience anger in this way. It's more like a consistent stance against what is harmful or destructive, an enduring part of his justice and mercy. In this sense, anger isn't a flash of emotion, but a necessary balance in the order of creation. This brings us to the concept of perfection. Human emotions are often tied to time, change, and personal experience. Our love deepens, our anger fades, our compassion grows or wanes depending on our circumstances. But if we imagine a creator who is beyond time and change, then his attributes would be eternal and consistent. This isn't love or anger that varies, it's a constant, pure reality. In that sense, describing the Creator's love, anger, or mercy is not about the kind of emotions we feel, but about qualities that are perfectly balanced and endlessly sustaining. When people say the Creator is compassionate, it's not the same as human compassion. We feel compassion because we see others suffering and feel empathy, often because we've felt pain ourselves. But an eternal creator who doesn't suffer or need anything would have compassion as an inherent part of his nature, a boundless kindness that isn't born from personal experience or need. It's compassion that's active and constant, a source of mercy that doesn't diminish. It's like the difference between a small stream of water and the vast ocean. Both provide water, but one is limited, temporary, and may dry up, while the other is vast, deep, and seemingly endless. When we describe attributes of a creator using terms we know, we should remember that they're on a different scale, not just bigger or stronger, but unlimited and independent of anything else. To understand this further, let's consider the concept of knowledge. Humans have knowledge, but our knowledge is always growing, always limited, and often flawed. When people say a creator is all-knowing, they don't mean he gains knowledge or learns over time. Instead, it's an eternal knowledge that's complete in every way. It's like comparing the light from a small candle to the light of the sun. Both produce light, but one is limited and dependent, while the other is vast and sustaining for all life. Similarly, people may ask if the Creator's mercy is like ours. Humans are merciful, but often selectively, sometimes with expectations. But a Creator's mercy would be free from those limits. It's not given out of obligation or need. Instead, it's an open and constant source that flows without diminishing, independent of whether it's deserved or not. So, when we say a creator is merciful, we're referring to a mercy that is free from limitations or conditions, not one that has any hint of restriction or variation. In human relationships, we experience love, anger, and mercy as part of complex emotional processes, and they're deeply personal and often unpredictable. But if a creator exists, he's not bound by these same experiences. His love is not born from loneliness, his mercy isn't selective, and his anger doesn't arise from frustration. He's beyond these fluctuations, and his attributes exist in a state of perfect balance. This difference is essential. Using a similar term doesn't imply similarity in essence. When we think of the Creator's attributes, we should think of them as an entirely different reality, one that's as far beyond ours as the sun's light is from a flickering flame. Just as we might use the same term to describe the foot of an elephant and the foot of an ant without assuming they are alike, we should understand that the Creator's attributes are unique and limitless, with no connection to our own limitations. So when people claim that a creator's attributes are human-like, it's actually a misunderstanding. These attributes are described in familiar terms, but they exist in a way that's fundamentally different. A creator's love doesn't fade. His anger doesn't rise and fall. His mercy doesn't change with time or circumstance. These qualities are eternal, boundless, and perfect. They're named so we can relate to them, but they exist beyond the limitations of any human experience. If we try to understand this, we can see why using common words for the Creator's attributes doesn't imply commonality with human traits. These attributes are entirely unique, necessary, and complete, existing as part of an eternal reality that's fundamentally different from the world we know. So, just as the Creator would be beyond physical limitations, his attributes would be beyond the limitations we experience. They're not reflections of our qualities, but of something infinitely greater, independent, and profound.